Well, good morning, and thank you for tuning into my reputational risk assessment for the City of New Braunfels Parks and Recreation Aquatics Division. This is my final assignment for my APR 524 Reputation and Risk Management course with the University of Alabama with Dr. Courtney Boman. Dr. Boman, I hope this video finds you well and that this is kind of on par with what you were expecting out of this assignment. And I also just wanted to say really quickly, thank you for a wonderful semester. I really enjoyed learning about reputation and crisis management and what that looks like at the advertising and public relations scope and universe. I've really enjoyed this semester, and I'm really hoping that I can finish strong with this presentation and we do well moving forward. So with that being said, let's just go ahead and get into it. Thank you, board members, and thank you for members of the City of New Braunfels team for tuning into my reputational risk assessment on what things are kind of looking like in the state of things for the summer 2022 season. What we're going to be investigating and kind of examining is the seasonal shortage and what that looks like specific to the city tube chute and the aquatics division overall, and what that might look like as it ripples out into larger organizations, from our department to our organization and our community as a whole, what that looks like, and what tourism in New Braunfels on the Comal River looks like this season, given these severe circumstances. So to start off with the introduction, we're still kind of in a pandemic, but we're also not anymore. Truthfully, I've heard that the pandemic has been over so many points over the last 2 years. I think it's just going to be one of those things that is always with us to some degree. But I think the general consensus is that the worst of it is over. Most mask mandates have been lifted. Most vaccination requirements are no longer as effective or no longer as important as they were probably about 6 months ago when we were dealing with the Delta and Omicron variants. So as we kind of move forward into the next phase of this pandemic, I think one of the systemic, longer lasting effects from the COVID pandemic has been on the American workforce. Everywhere I go, I see a help wanted sign, I see we're hiring. There is certainly a national labor shortage at the frontline level. And I think it's across the board. It is everywhere you go, really. And unfortunately for us, the City of New Braunfels Parks and Recreation Department has been no different. In fact, we have been feeling this national labor shortage. This will be our 4th season. We've been experiencing this, and we've been kind of having to be flexible and be adaptable and accommodating with our lifeguard shortages and our seasonal staff shortages and what that may look like. But as we approach the end of April and begin really ramping up the early summer weeks and the summer seasonal shifts, what we have unfortunately projected is that our 2022 staff may be a record low. And kind of what this reputational risk assessment is going to discuss and kind of get into are the rippling internal and external issues and incidences that play a part into it or have the potential to come about as a direct result from that lifeguard shortages. So we'll kind of get into that just a little more and kind of discuss what that kind of looks like moving into the 2022 summer. Just a little quick background on myself and why I feel I have the credentials to be making this reputational risk assessment to the members of the board who may not be super familiar with me just yet. I started as a seasonal lifeguard with the Aquatics Division of the City of New Braunfels. It was my first job, sophomore in high school, from summer 2015 to summer 2018. So I served in that role as a frontline staff member for 4 summers. And then 2019, I moved up into the seasonal management team as an assistant aquatics manager. And that was really our first season where we kind of got a taste of what it was like to have to operate, have to open and run programming any shortage of hands and a shortage of work. So we have kind of been dealing with that and kind of been learning how to adapt our rotations, our scheduling. We've been doing all of that, and I've been playing a part in all of that. At that time, it was just at the day-to-day operations, writing the lifeguard rotations and kind of writing out what their day would look like. And then, of course, in summer of 2020, the COVID summer, I was promoted to the senior aquatics manager. There's normally 2 of them, but my counterpart actually pulled out, and so now it was just me that summer. And it was a lot of uncertainty and a lot of we're not sure what's going to happen just yet. But it actually ended up being one of the easiest seasons because a lot of people came back. And we actually had an influx of lifeguards, which was great. It just, unfortunately, it wasn't the summer we really needed it because we weren't doing a whole lot. But through all that trial and tribulation and figuring out what comes next, I decided to go full-time almost a year to the date. I became the assistant aquatic supervisor in May of 2021, and I've been serving in that role ever since. The same week, I got my bachelor's from Texas State University with a master's in public administration. So my background is very much in city government and working in municipalities. But I've also decided to study APR and study crisis and reputation management. So in January, I decided to pursue an MA from the University of Alabama. I'm wrapping up my first semester right now, and it's been really great evaluating reputational and risk challenges and assessments and what that looks like on a case study level. So moving forward, for the members of the board who might not be super familiar, it is a relatively niche group. Anyone in the parks and recreation world, and especially the aquatics field in the parks and recreation world, knows that there's no one size fits all when it comes to aquatic divisions and managing aquatic facilities. What our division is in charge of, we're actually in charge of 2 facilities. The first one would be the Lander Park Aquatic Complex, which is a closed-in facility and it's more specific to swim team programming. What the picture you're looking at right there is our flagship river-fed pool. We call it a spring-fed pool. That's our big pool right there. It's about the size of 2 Olympic pools. We also have a lap swimming chlorinated Olympic pool and then a small kiddie chlorinated pool called the zero depth pool. So those 3 pools make up the aquatic complex. And then the other facility we run, it's a little less traditional. It's an open facility. It's called the City of New Braunfels Tube Chute. And we actually manage the property on the river on both sides of the bank for a certain amount of land. That is private property owned by the city, but for the river itself, that is actually property of the state. So we don't have the rights to regulate that, and we can't really keep people who we don't want necessarily on our property out because they are free to travel through the river just as anyone else is. It is free public space for river recreation. They're just not allowed to get out without paying the admission fee. So it's a little different managing that. But we're also kind of a part of the Comal River tube chute industry. I mean, that deals with tube outfitters. If you look to the right of that picture, that is the Float-In Bar, which is a bar restaurant where you can hang out at the river. We kind of work with them a lot to ensure safety across the board, but primarily what we are there for is the safety of all the tubers that kind of float through the Comal River. And I'll go over just a little bit about what the City Tube Chute is. I'll have some more pictures just to kind of show you what it's about, because it is a very niche specific thing. So if you may not be familiar with river recreation, or if that's not something that is really a thing in your part of the country, no worries, we'll go over it in just a little bit, and hopefully it'll make a little more sense on why those lifeguards are there and why they are a public safety measure, and just how important it is for the city to provide that service to all the tourists who come and float in our river. Like I was mentioning, this is the Comal River. It is very famous throughout the state of Texas. People come from all points of the state to come and float and do river recreation. Basically what you do is you blow up a tube, you float. The bottom picture right there, that's called Hemet Island. You float, and then you go down this tube chute. It is a repurposed mill from the 50s. It basically condenses the river into a tiny water slide, and it kind of shoots you out. It's a lot of fun if you are safe and know what to expect. It is a Class 3 rapids, which under that classification means that either everyone has to have helmets on, or there has to be lifeguards stationed there for it to be safely used for recreational purposes. And from a financial point, the city definitely prefers that there be lifeguards there. We can jump in and out almost non-stop on some busy Saturdays and Sundays in the weekend, just pulling people out, making sure everyone finds their tubes, their party, etc. So it is very unique and very interesting and specific to the city of New Braunfels. And so it's very much our responsibility to make sure that we provide fun, safe river recreation. Now, with that being said, the Comal River does not necessarily have the best advertisement. I think that is both to the faults of the tube outfitters and the city. I think we could do a little bit of a better job advertising just how fast these rapids move, and how it's not necessarily a water park slide. It is very much a natural body of water with sharp rocks and unknown currents that move through it on a day-to-day basis. So it absolutely can be dangerous for weak swimmers, dogs, and even babies to go down that river, and we have seen all of that happen almost every day. I myself have pulled out a 2-week-old infant baby with no life jacket on, floating in that water by themselves because their mom flipped. So it can be dangerous if you are not an aquatic person, or you are just not physically ready to use that tube chute yet. It can get a little dangerous. So that's why we have those lifeguards there. They do a really good job making sure that no one gets hurt. I'm very proud to say that in the 8 years I've worked with the aquatic division, nobody has ever had a fatality as a direct result from drowning. All fatalities have been because of pre-existing conditions, and even those are few and far between. So despite the natural challenges that come along with it, New Braunfels is very much on the map now. And when I tell my current staff that, there used to be points where you could not see water, they always think I'm exaggerating, but if you look at that bottom picture, you cannot see water. That is just on the other side of the float and bar, where it just continues to pile up and pile up and pile up. So it very much can be very dangerous, especially with these crowds. If they go left unchecked or uncontrolled, it can be very easy to get lost in the mass of colorful tubes. It can be very dangerous. So just to kind of show you what the circumstances and the severity of the river are, what you're looking at here is the amount of saves and assists lifeguards performed since 2018. An assist means they threw their throw tubes. A save means they actually jumped in and grabbed that patron or whoever was struggling or needed help. You can clearly tell, 80s, 90s, dozens and dozens of jumping in and throwing tubes, really nonstop from Memorial Day weekend all the way to Labor Day. This stops at 4th of July, but it continues. I think this kind of makes the point of just how intense it can be working here and working at the city tube chute. So going back to the context of the lifeguard shortages, I would argue there's going to be some significant negative impacts either to the 2022 season hours of operation, opening hours, all across the board. Just the normal traditional services that we provide the city of New Braunfels and that we always have for decades is now coming into question and up in the air. Nothing's really sure at this point. So, like I mentioned earlier, we've been short-staffed since 2019. The Aquatics Division likes to hire 60 lifeguards. That would be a fully staffed traditional year. What you're looking at right here in 2019, we had 35 lifeguards. 2020, we got that little bump from COVID. We got up to 43, which was great, except we didn't really need them because the rivers were closed. Per Governor Abbott's orders, he shut down river recreation during the early months of the pandemic, so we didn't really need them. And then back to 2021, we were back in the 30s, barely making ends meet to provide programming like swim lessons, camps, swim team, and all of that happening at the LPAC, or the Lana Park Aquatic Complex, LPAC for short, in addition to sending people over to work at the tube chute. So it was all very much a tight, lean year, but as you can tell from this PowerPoint, as of April 22nd, as of the time of this recording, we have only signed on 13 lifeguards to be hired for this upcoming season. So if 39 was lean, 13 is statistically and mathematically not possible to provide the same level of services to our community that we have been in previous years. And it's also, I want to point out that additionally, because we have a shortage, all of these lifeguards, they're in high school and college. I would say almost all of them are. They all have extracurriculars and vacations and other extraneous circumstances that call them away from this place, and they don't really care that it's a job. It's a summer job to them, not a career. So if there's a fun beach trip vacation that their friends are taking and they want to take it, they will. It's just that simple. So it's also, so to point out this last slide right here, this last line, specific to the aquatics industry, 1/3 of public pools in the country are facing this problem and are expected to reduce or close hours to some degree throughout this year. We are no different, of course. We are a part of that 1/3 that will be. But I wanted to point that out and really highlight that that is the overarching external issue that this reputational risk assessment is facing. And as we go on and continue with the assessment, you'll notice that almost all of the internal and external issues that stem from that come from this very fact that there are just not lifeguards the way there used to be. So let's kind of talk about a reputational opportunity, since I've been so doom and gloom up until this point. I think this is an opportunity for the community of New Braunfels to reevaluate how we perceive our Comal River lifeguards. I think they often go overlooked, underappreciated, and underpaid from an advertising and marketing communications perspective. Very rarely does anyone ever acknowledge how intense it can be at the chute. And that's on the outfitters front and the city council chambers front. No one seems to really acknowledge just how dangerous river recreation can be and how it really has kind of gotten out of control since the turn of the century. So our lifeguards do a lot of good work. I think people seem to forget that they are putting their hands in the lives of teenagers and college kids when they get on those rivers. These are not doctors, these are not nurses, these are kids looking for a summer job in the sun. So they do a lot of good work for really not much. And I think this shortage and acknowledging this shortage could really be an opportunity for the city of New Braunfels to acknowledge the good work they've done and really kind of elevate and recognize what the lifeguards have done and what they continue to do day in and day out through every recreational summer season. So moving back to the reputation opportunity, New Braunfels' population has grown exponentially in recent years. We consistently rank at the top of fastest growing cities at our level or at our size in the country. We usually bounce back and forth between Austin, it's usually New Braunfels and Austin for fastest growing Texas cities. But what you can tell here is we have grown 56% according to the US Census since 2000. And you can clearly tell we were at less than 40 20 years ago, and now we're at over 90. I'm pretty sure we're closer to 100 at this point. I don't have that specific data. So kind of going back to that reputation opportunity to celebrate and spotlight our lifeguards. These coming years are crucial to advertising to the newcomers what the City of New Braunfels Parks and Recreation Aquatics Division has to offer, and make sure we market to that incoming surge of newcomers about the issue and about what we can offer from a river recreational standpoint. Because the logic is not there. You would think that a town that has grown and more than doubled its population size would not be having issues staffing facilities that have never been a problem before. So I think it's really important to spread that awareness and kind of find the root systemic cause as to why we're missing these newcomers, why people are not applying, and really identifying what that is moving forward. Moving on to the reputation risk register, we'll start on the small scale, and then as you move down, you kind of envelope and kind of balloon up different organizations and different departments. So the New Braunfels Aquatics Division falls under the Parks and Recreation Department, which is a department as part of the City of New Braunfels as a municipal organization. So what the Aquatics Division does, it does on behalf of the Parks Department and the City of New Braunfels as a municipal organization. The first main issue is that it is an external-led industry issue, the lack of lifeguards, and it can lead to incumbent staff that we currently have burning out because they are required to work more. We are expecting them to schedule more. They're expected to be scheduled more. They don't get as many breaks because there's not enough lifeguards on the rotation that can do it. And because of that, I think people tend to get burnt out faster. When I was a lifeguard, the average years or amount of years people would work would be 3 or 4. Now we're lucky if we get anyone to come back. Our turnover rate has definitely expedited and definitely moved faster. So what we can do on our part and what we have been doing throughout the recruitment season is we can implement more aggressive recruiting tactics. Maybe we go and get t-shirts instead of stickers. Maybe we go and find some more schools. Maybe we go to charter schools. Maybe we start speaking directly with coaches, just to try to get more people in the door and spread awareness about what we do and why we do it. From the Parks Department, I think what they need to do most importantly is be aware of the closures that need to come as a result of this short staff issue, and be a little more willing and prepared for that. It is an external-led issue because what we do, we don't focus on profit, we focus on providing community services, and there will be some backlash as a result of being required to shut things down. So I think being prepared for that public outrage and that public internal crisis is pertinent and the most important thing they can do. And it also will result in a potential internal loss of revenue for the city. Yes, while we are not focused on profit and revenue, it does matter, and it does go into a pool that helps the city organization run like any other business. A big loss for revenue at the tube shoot front is we do rent out tubes ourselves. That would be where we make the majority of our money. So losing that revenue because we failed to hire enough staff would be catastrophic for the next budget cycle and future budget cycles moving forward. If we close down the chute because we did not meet the necessary requirements, the City of New Braunfels as a municipal organization might face an internal-led issue by leaving the tube chute unstaffed and unattended, from a city representative perspective, someone would likely die. To be blunt about it, something bad would happen, and it could continue to happen over and over and over. So that would be why it's an internal lit issue. It would be pure internal neglect from the city's perspective, and lead to potential lawsuits and just a rippling, spiraling effect of more issues as a result of not being able to staff the chute properly. So I would say that's severe. And I think that would require action on the city manager's office side to really investigate feasible long-term solutions to prevent future hiring shortages once or if this current hiring shortage kind of eases up and more people start to apply again and we get back to more conventional, traditional numbers. I think that would require an internal case study on how we keep that from ever happening again, whether that means raising the pay, raising more incentives, incentive bonuses, city employee bonuses, really anything that can keep talent and keep people here while also remaining competitive in the New Braunfels 16 to 29-year-old age demographic pool, make sure that we still remain a viable option for those people looking for summer work. But ultimately, because we are a tourist destination, this can have an impact on the city of New Braunfels as a city entity community. It can start as an internal issue of inadequately staffing river properties and lead to those potential internal incidences and fatalities. That could damage our New Braunfels reputation as a city and a prominent tourist destination in the Central Texas region. We've always been known for providing family fun, recreational attractions. If that changes because word gets out that the city doesn't care if people die on the river, we could see a loss in our tourist revenue and a shrinking in that industry as a city economy. So if closures are imminent, I would argue that a collective joint effort between the private river outfitter businesses like the tube outfitters and the bars work in conjunction with the city of New Braunfels to really revamp the communication and awareness of the safety and potential river hazardness to the out-of-towners who might not really know what they're getting themselves into. So that's my reputation risk register. And I'm sure there's more internal and external issues that can be covered, but this is kind of just from a bird's eye view of potential cascading effects that could happen as a result of this lifeguard short staff issue. So on the short-term scenario planning, swift action is required on all fronts of the department to get more lifeguards recruited and hired immediately. We're at the end of April, and typically we begin putting lifeguards on stand first weekend in May. So time is really of the essence here. What I think a fast and easy solution, whether it be friendly to the budget or not, would be to immediately raise the lifeguard pay to that of other New Braunfels aquatic entities. We have a huge water park known as Schlitterbahn right here in the middle of our town. We've always prided ourselves on hiring and paying more than Schlitterbahn, but they've recently gone under new management and now they pay at $17 an hour when we still pay at $12. And when we've gone on these recruitment fairs, we've definitely talked to at least one student every single time, and they always say, Schlitterbahn pays me more, so I'm going there. So that might be a way we can kind of level the playing field and really address the issue and make sure that we are on par with our competitors. I think we could also work in conjunction with our Human Resources Department to expedite the hiring process because we are the government and we require background checks and drug tests just to get hired. I think that slows down the process and it turns people away. I've had people tell me that at these recruitment fairs. So perhaps if we hosted hiring fairs and same-day hiring interviews maybe we can get a few more people in the door and really get them committed to wanting to work for the City of New Braunfels Parks and Recreation Department. And another issue that we've had is Schlitterbahn hires at 15 years old, and what happens is those 15-year-olds, they go and work at Schlitterbahn because that's all they have. That's all that's available to them that summer. They like it so much, they stay and they keep going back for more higher pay raises, higher increases, returning bonuses, and they never even consider us because they found their family there first. Well, if we lowered our age a year, we're currently at 16 years old, if we lowered it to 15 years old, I would make the argument that some of those lifeguards would start out with us, and they'll love it so much because we do have a very strong work culture. Generally speaking, when we ask these returners who don't come back or move on to something else, they usually say it's because they get a better job that pays more. Very rarely do we ever get someone who says it's because the work culture was bad, or the managers were toxic, or the supervisors didn't listen to us. It's almost always, I was offered something better and I'm going where the money is. And we can't be mad at them for that. We have to understand that, and we do. But we also need to understand that in order to kind of slow down the leakage of these guards, we need to do swift action and take swift action now. So to address the impacts of the external issue regarding the shortages to prevent potential internal incidences, like I mentioned earlier, the drownings and the near drownings, minimizing the loss of revenue and profit, all of that is pertinent in these efforts in the short term to make sure that we don't do that as much as we potentially could, or leave room open for those drownings and those losses in the budget, unless we take this swift action and we stay on par with our competitors. In the medium term, I would argue the medium term is kind of after the 2022 season and fiscal year 22, which ends at the end of September. I think that would be time for the City of New Braunfels to kind of reevaluate and really reallocate the funds to be able to raise the pay higher and be able to pay more people to come work for seasonal positions. And also spend that extra money and kind of reshuffle some of the marketing money to spread awareness about those safety concerns on that riverfront, just so people are more aware of what they're getting into and more aware of when the lifeguards are there. So this would be the time to boost that external marketing communications with surrounding areas. It kind of goes back to that reputation opportunity I was talking to y'all about how we need to capitalize on these newcomers coming into town, on these 45,000 people who are here, who don't know about us and don't know the ins and out of the river and recreation, and make sure that they know what they're getting into. I think we should also increase the signage on the river. Truthfully, there was an internal issue with members of City Council who do not want to talk about the safety hazards on the river because they don't want to admit that it's a problem. There's denial at the top, and that's why there's hesitancy and resistance to signage on the river and really revamping awareness on the river, because there is no signs that say this is your last exit to the tube chute, before the tube chute, exit now or you're going down it. And it happens too often and too fast. And oftentimes when we talk to parents after pulling their babies out of the water is, we didn't know it was this bad. So I think signage would be the best way to start, the most cost-effective and affordable way to start. But in addition to that, we should talk to tube outfitters, because most of these people go through tube outfitters because tube outfitters provide shuttles, and it makes the whole chaotic experience of the river just a little more manageable. If we had those tube outfitters create and require all of their customers to go through a safety training video on the Comal River, just wear a life jacket, this is what the tube chute looks like, something small and simple before they get on the river, I think that would be a great way to really capture most of the floating population and get them a little more aware and have them a little more knowledgeable so that they can make a safe and informed decision on whether or not them or their families should go down the tube chute based off of their swimming abilities or age or health. I think moving forward for future seasons, this would be the best way, raising the pay so that more lifeguards get there and spreading awareness of that safety. I think these would be the best ways to mitigate that internal issue of water safety dangers on the Comal River and really help preserve the reputation of the City of New Braunfels Parks and Recreation Aquatics Division. Long term, I would argue that the long-term scenario planning would be to eliminate the potential reputational threat on the Comal River, and that is the tube chute itself. The tube chute is dangerous. We know this and we understand this. City Council understood this. What you're looking at right here is the winning concept for a redesign of the chute. Instead of having it be one steep dam, it would be kind of a cascading waterfall so that people who wanted to go down the chute could, and then people who didn't would have a more traditional and conventional water slide to just stay in their tube and continue the float that way. This plan was designed and finalized at the beginning of 2020. This was February 2020. Our assistant city manager, her name was Courtney. She was the one kind of spearheading this project and was really going to start implementing it, and then COVID hit, and it was all the brakes got pumped from there on. And then since then we haven't really revisited it. Courtney actually left at the end of 2021, and her successors have not discussed whether or not they plan to reevaluate this plan and see if this is something they want to implement moving forward. But I would argue in the long term that is the best way we can prevent drownings and any internal incidences resulting from the riverfront for the City of New Braunfels moving forward. So as a reputation strategy, I think it's obvious that what we're currently doing is not working. We need to take action, and we need to take it now. I would argue the best way to get people in the door is to raise the seasonal pay of lifeguards and really aggressively promote through all of our digital channels of external marketing communications that we have raised the pay and lowered the age. While I do think that would be the best way to stop it and the best way to stop this shortage once and for all, I think it is worth a reevaluation of our internal staff culture and our corporate communications across the division. Yes, I started at the bottom and I've worked my way up, and I've always felt we had a good corporate communication relationship with our frontline staff, but perhaps moving forward or somewhere along the way, we lost that. And it's just not something me at the top of the division ever really saw or noticed or was made aware of. So maybe that is something worth reevaluating, taking those polls, getting that data, and seeing how have we failed our employees and our frontline staff to let it get to this point. I think that would be a well worth endeavor to go under. We also need to increase our corporate communications with human resources and the Parks Department and our bosses, the city managers, to make the hiring age up to 15 years old and make sure that is a long-lasting effect, and see if that can help us get to where we need to be. So to kind of wrap this up, I know I went a little over the suggested time, and I hope that's okay. I apologize to the members of the board. This assessment concludes with the recommendation that swift action is needed to continue the City of New Braunfels' reputational standing, both in our local community and across the state and beyond. From a safety perspective, we have to prevent any internal incidences resulting from this systemic, overarching national external issue of this shortage of lifeguards, mitigating the damage, minimizing the damage, while also taking advantage of serving a ripe opportunity to amend any internal issues of falling behind either in culture, in pay rates, across the board in comparison to what other businesses and organizations in the New Braunfels area who hire 16 to 29-year-old age demographics are doing, and really making sure that we maintain our standing and get back to where we were just 5 years ago. So thank you again to the members of the board for joining me and taking the time to go over this reputational risk assessment with me. Dr. Boman, thank you again for a wonderful semester. I know I email you a lot, so I do appreciate all the help you give me and all the guidance. And I really hope you like this assessment, and this is what you were hoping or had in mind when you assigned this project. And I hope this finds you well. I really do. I've never done an online Zoom presentation and uploaded it on YouTube before, so hopefully this finds you and it doesn't get lost in the cosmos. Anyways, thank you again for watching my video, and I hope y'all have a great summer. Thank you.